Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. This show is brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl.
As a member, I'll provide you a roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. We can help you to turn your flock of hybrid crosses or mongrels into a pure family or strain, and show you how to continually improve that strain each generation. We'll start by showing you how to select your seed fowl and how to turn that seed fowl into a high-quality foundation strain. Our proven breeding programs and specialty courses are designed to take you step by step through the breeding process. And best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl. Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders Academy, and I'm here with my wife Nancy and co-host Frank Bradley. What's up, guys?
Not much. How you guys?
I'm her slave lately. You know, she's retired, but all of a sudden I'm her slave. She's working my butt off. Man, it's gotten really hot here. She's got the house, the garage. No, this is more than honeydew. The garage, the shed, the backyard. We got a dumpster. We've been filling that thing every week for quite a while. I didn't know we had so much junk.
That's what we're getting ready to get into the self-remodel. And I dread it so bad. We put it off, but it's got to the point now to where we're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
Get it done before winter.
Well, they got me back, or they tried to get me back, or they were going to get me back. They are evil people, I'm telling you.
Well, let me say this first, is because I know where she's going with this, is the only way I could escape the work was to go to Florida and go on a vacation. Tani and I left her behind and we went to Florida.
They did.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You know, with Amanda, I always tell her, I said, when the conversation starts about something needs to be done, you always say, we need to do this. We need to do that. We need to get this done. But I said, and the part of we, when it's actually getting done, it's me doing it. And it's not we anymore. So what happened to we?
Yeah. I told her, she goes, should we get a dumpster? I go, I don't think we have enough to fill a dumpster. We've been filling that thing every week for over a month now.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And if it's not nailed down, I'm tossing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told her, I go, I hope I'm impressing you, because I'm throwing things away that I never thought I would throw away. So I'm throwing a lot of stuff.
Man, it's hard for Amanda to do that. If she's got something, it's sentimental to her. I don't care what it is. It could be a box me and her got at an outing or something, and it was a good day, and she'll hold on to that box just as a remembrance. I said, you can't do that, honey. You can some things, but not everything.
Yeah.
Hey, I still got my dirt from Palm Springs, so yeah.
There you go.
This
I'm going to use it to fill a hole out there here pretty soon. So
this is what they did, guys. All right. So I'm not a huge fan of tattoos. Please, I'm not insulting anybody who has a tattoo. You do you, and that's fine. But they went to a place where you could buy the fake tattoos that you just, slap on to rub on. And they're like, hey, let's both get a tattoo to commemorate our trip.
No, not exactly. We saw them in the gift shop, and we came up with a great idea. Before we left, we were going to buy a couple. We were going to slap them on our arm and say, hey, Nancy, look what we got, from the park. And we chickened out, because when Nancy gets mad, there's no bringing her back. And I'm like, I told Tanya, I go, do we really want to go here? Because boy, when she gets that mad, it's not going to be fun, So we chickened out. But we were going to get tattoos and go, hey, look what we got.
I think tattoos looks awful on people. I would never get one ever. I hate them.
Yeah.
Are you being serious?
No.
Okay.
I do feel that way.
I've got one here, but thing about it is it's got to be what you want to do. Is that person?
Yeah.
Amanda's mom, she hates them. So when I went and got one, I wasn't her best friend for a little bit. But I guess I can use the old phrase, "My body, my choice." I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I got one. Thought I always wanted it, and I regretted it. Yeah, I wish I didn't. As a matter of fact, first chance I get, if I see, like my hospital where our insurance covers it, I'll probably get it taken off.
Yeah, it's pretty. They say it's less painful than actually getting a tattoo, getting it taken off. So
I hear it's more painful getting it taken off than it is getting the tattoo. Is that what you said, or is that
no other way around? That it's not that bad. It's depending on who you talk to. I've had some people say it was real painful, and then other people said wasn't any more of getting it. So they just burn it off, and 2 or 3 segments, just burn it out of your skin. Then,
well, maybe I should research it, because I'd like to get rid of it.
It doesn't scar you.
What's that?
It doesn't scar you, so that's a good thing. That's a plus.
Yeah. I just wish I never did it. So
anyway,
yeah,
just the fact that they thought about doing that to poor little old me that was holding down the house while they went out and played. No, actually, I had a good time. I had some peace and quiet. I hung out with some of my girlfriends going antique shopping, which I'm sure that would have just killed Kenny to have to go do that. So yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah.
But moving on.
Yeah, I want to welcome the new members. I really appreciate all the new members we got in the last week or so. And my advice is to begin with the Start Here pages, and don't try to absorb it too quickly. There's a lot of information in there. Take your time, get used to the website, understand how it's laid out, check out the programs and courses. And then after a month or so, and you feel like you got a hang of the website, and you have a handful of questions, we can always set up a coaching call. I don't like setting up coaching calls right away, because I know you're going to have a lot more questions even after the coaching call. So, but I do appreciate all the new members. Stay tuned for the members after this show. We're going to do a round table. We're going to do about an hour here, and then go on the back and do a round table for the members. Also, join. I'm not where I should be. This is a good time to join the Breeders Academy. just go to www.breedersacademy.com. You'll have over 800 pages of information. You also have the Founders Program, Master's Class videos, Members Roundtable, all the programs and courses that support that. You'll have a complete access to all the live shows and our podcast. We have daily articles, and we have a lot of great advice from experts like Brian Reeder, Peter Brown, Dr. Gallardo, and like I said earlier, we do coaching calls. So make sure to go to www.breedersacademy.com to join. Can't wait to work with you. Okay, anything you guys want to say before we get started?
Just one thing. Has anybody else lost the ability to write?
Because we type so much?
Yeah, I'm getting anymore to where it's difficult for me to write. If it's not doing this or, the hunt and poke thing, I'm getting to where I can't. It's awkward for me to write. It really is.
Yeah, and some days are better than others.
Yeah.
There's some days where I can write real nice and it's beautiful, and some days I can't put two words together,
Same here.
I can't even read my own writing.
Yeah, it's awkward, and I'm at my job entitled writing, and I got pretty good at it, but I'm telling you, the past 5 years it's going downhill dramatically. I mean, I'm losing the function to actually write.
Yeah.
Don't feel too bad, because the kids coming up aren't even taught cursive writing. So
that's what I was actually thinking.
Who cares anymore?
That may be a good thing.
Cursive writing, and they can't read it, or tell time with clocks with hands.
Oh my God.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they didn't teach that either.
Yeah. Really?
All
right, moving on. What else we got going on?
Okay. No, that's all I have. We were going to do, what was it called? Feeding the Founding Fathers Away.
Oh, I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, I was hoping to do it this week, but Nancy...
That's my fault.
No, it's not.
I sent him more stuff.
No. I just didn't have time to finish putting it together and see where I wanted to go with it. The outline you gave me was actually pretty good, but I needed to kind of sort everything out and see how I wanted to present it. And we were just so busy with everything around here. I was like, okay, no, I want to do, there's some outlines and some topics I really want to do good. I want to do them right. And I don't like doing things half-ass. And if I feel like I'm going to do that, then it doesn't work for me. I'd rather put it aside. And the outline I pulled out from my files was one that we were going to do multiple times. And for some reason or other, we never got to it. It's like every time I brought it up on the outline, something happened and we weren't going to get it done. So I just said, I think this thing's cursed. So I said, I'm going to put this aside and maybe never touch it again, because every time I bring it up,
it's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. It's a lot of what we've talked about before, but I do think it's important. I think it'd be a great conversation. And there's a lot of people that are new to us, new to watching the show, new to the Breeders' Academy. So maybe it'll be new to them. And like I said, it's all about, for me, creating a conversation. All the major teaching is in the Breeders' Academy for the Master's Class videos and the roundtables. So we're going to talk about, let me get the title right, A War on Common Sense Breeding. And it seems that we're lacking a lot of common sense when it comes to breeding. We're heavily, attached to old wives' tales and superstitions, and people aren't really thinking for themselves. They're listening to other people. They're not really examining what they're hearing. They're not putting it to the test, and they're just assuming what they're hearing is right. And we're going down a very dangerous road to the point where we're hurting the breed and we're hurting the breeders. And I just think eventually, if we don't get a handle on this, I think eventually we're going to lose the breed. And so these are going to be a number of topics that are attached to that, because I feel like we're in a crisis when it comes to common sense. Go ahead.
Let me ask you. So, common sense, right? Oh, you're
going to test my common sense now?
Yeah. The type of chicken doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the chicken looks like. It doesn't matter if they have, flat back or the tail's too low, whatever. It's still good. Breed it. Cross to everything you can find, because that's the best way to get the birds you want. Let me see. What's another one?
Are you trying to sum up my whole outline so we can go home early? Okay.
Hybrids are everything.
Oh wow, she's hitting every one of
Well,
them.
I can do it. I can do it in a short way.
Okay.
I can do the outline in a short way. Was people giving advice on breeding that had no idea how to maintain a family or create a family? That's how I see it.
Or saying that science and breeding isn't important, but
That would be
never
the
actually
ones
created
that-
a strain themselves.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah. Spent their life on making crosses and riding the hybrid vigor train, but know nothing about how to maintain a true family. None whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I look at it this way. It's become and I don't remember this long time, when I was a kid or anything, but it's become a war on confirmation, a war on inbreeding and line breeding and breeding methods. It's a war on purity of blood, book learning, genetics, biology, all those kind of things. It's like anything that would help you create, improve, or maintain a strain, everybody is in a war against it because it's too much work. They're lazy. They don't want to go through all that. They've been doing it a certain way for so long, even though they're not getting the results they're looking for, which means they're bringing in new blood all the time. And so I think they get all worked up about it because they don't want to have to do it. And if someone else is doing it, then they're looking bad and they're falling behind. So they're trying to keep everybody down with them. And like I said, I just think it's a dangerous road we're going down.
Growth in anything, any hobby or anything, growth and success makes a lot of enemies.
Yeah,
it does.
Well
People
said.
doesn't like to see it. They hate to see somebody even be correct on numerous things about something they're involved in. So if you tell them something that they believe to be true, you can be their best friend. But if you tell them the truth and it's something they've never heard of or done or have no idea about, then you just throw mud in their face.
Yeah. It's the comfort zone. There's people who don't want to leave their comfort zone, and there are the others that are challenged by that new method that they've never heard of, and it's so easy. I think we've shown in the Breeders' Academy that we're not talking about difficult things. We're not talking about complicated things. With a little bit of learning, a little understanding, and a little bit of practice and understanding the principles, it's amazing how quickly you can adapt, how quickly you can learn, how quickly you'll see results in your birds.
And how quickly you see the big picture.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me in one sentence, boys, what's the importance of confirmation of body?
Tools.
Well, without confirmation, and I like to lump in type, station, and carriage with that, you don't have a breed. You don't have the birds. Okay. You're just producing animals. If they don't have the right type, confirmation, carriage, and station, then they don't represent their breed. So then what are you doing? You know what I mean? So a lot of people will say, Frank, that I don't care what they look like as long as they perform. And I've seen this in domestic chickens. I've seen it in gamefowl. I've seen it in even other animals. They don't care what it looks like as long as they perform. And then what happens?
Yeah. But in reality, I can get that understanding, common sense. As long as they do their jobs, then that's it. But here's the thing. If you're taking a bird, say you can't see his legs for his wings covering them up, he looks like he's sitting down on his knees, and you're breeding that bird closely with other birds, it's going to get to a point to where they're going to get so bad that they're not going to get the performance they thought they're going to get, and two, the birds is going to get so bad on confirmation that it's going to affect them severely.
And when they don't concentrate on confirmation, mainly a lot of times because they don't know about confirmation, then what the main trait they were actually going for, which was performance, goes away because they can't perform the purpose for which they were bred. And I'm talking about all fowl. I'm talking about all animals. And so then what do? You're going to hear this as a common theme with us, is that their fallback is to either outcross or to infuse new blood because they feel like it's losing something. It's not losing something. You bred it out. You selectively bred it out of the family to where it's not there anymore. But then you bred that out thinking you're breeding something else in through crossbreeding, which you're not. you're only mixing up the bloodline. You're only recombinating the genes. On top of that, and because of hybrid vigor, they look good the first generation. But on top of that, after a couple generations, all of a sudden you start seeing all the traits that you added in from the outcross, which are the defects and deleterious genes. And then they go, okay, well, they're going in the wrong direction, so I have to bring in new blood. It's a hamster wheel that never ends. I don't know why people don't see that, you know?
Well, the thing of it is, maintaining a true family is just that, maintaining. It's not adding new blood. It's not, like Kenny said, it's not outcrossing or making a cross. It's about breeding for a certain set of traits in those birds. And my birds is going to be different from Kenny's. Kenny's is going to be different from the next guys. They're going to be, each breeder's birds is going to be different in some way or multiple ways in a lot of time. But you can't say that you've had a family for 30 years when you've added blood to them 10 times during then. You can't do that. Once you add blood, that family is gone forever. Once you outcross, that family is gone forever.
Yeah. So they're outcrossing, thinking they're fixing things. They're only mixing things up more, and they never seem to get there. So outcrossing becomes, they're afraid of inbreeding. They're afraid of the effects of inbreeding. They don't really know what that means because they never inbreed them enough to find out. And then they're using outcrossing to fix everything.
Well, and they're, I guess me taking their side on this one, on the inbreeding. I can see that, Kenny. I really can't see why they're afraid of inbreeding. Because with me and you, if we just take just any bird and inbreed it, that's dangerous. You know, especially if that bird's got a lot of defects, a lot of genetically sound things that's wrong with it. There's more to inbreeding than just putting two birds together. There's more than that. There's many. If you don't know how to do it, it can be hip-hardly dangerous just by inbreeding and doing it, you know, the way you think it's full. But to do it in a correct way, and selection and testing, it's the best tool that we've got in breeding.
Well, we promote inbreeding quite a bit, but we also say that not every bird should be inbred and not every breeder should use inbreeding because they don't understand that inbreeding is a tool. If you're using the right birds for the right reasons for the right length of time, then inbreeding's an awesome tool. I mean, you can do incredible things. In fact, you cannot create a strain or improve a strain without some inbreeding. I mean, we mentioned Robert Bakewell quite a bit. He's the father of selective breeding. He's the one that showed us the importance of inbreeding. And without it, I mean, all the breeds of chickens we have today, whether it's domestic chickens or gamefowl, whether it's goats or pigs or dogs, though we have separate breeds. We have individual breeds, and they're all, the reason we have them is because of inbreeding. Because you can't fixate the genes. You can't get them to a point of uniformity, consistency, to the point where they're predictable and they can repeat themselves. Without inbreeding, those things don't happen. So whenever you're outcrossing or crossing, you're changing whatever you've got in front of you. If there's any uniformity starting to happen, you're changing them. Even if you're in the same breed and you outcross them, there's going to be genes that particular family has that yours doesn't have, that's going to infiltrate itself into the genome, into the gene pool of your animals or your chickens. A lot of times that's not noticeable in the first generation or two. It's not until later. And how many times have we heard it where people have said, when they start realizing what they did, and they start, like, especially the Breeders' Academy members, that the biggest mistake they made once they realized it was outcrossing. The ones who never say that is the ones who don't really understand. Because what happens is they do the outcross, they don't see it for a few generations, and then when they do, they forgot what they did. They forgot the animals they bred together. They forgot the outcross that they actually did, and they just wonder, oh, that's just something that pops up. What do they call it? A throwback. Okay. Well, it's not throwback. It's just a hidden recessive that just finally found its way out because both animals were carrying the same recessive gene. So outcrossing becomes a detriment. Becomes a time bomb, as you would. And so inbreeding is the only way to clean up. We use it in the cleanup process. It's the only way to clean up the genome, the gene pool. to a point where you're getting that uniformity and consistency, because you don't have a foundation line until you get to that point. And it just makes me crazy, because when I see them finally getting to the foundation, Frank, they think they have to add new blood and they ruin everything they did. They have to start all over.
Yeah, and some of them, a lot of them, quite a few of them, don't think to do a subline, to do their testing in.
Yeah.
So what they do, they incorporate it into all their foundation fowl, if they do have foundation fowl, and then, more than likely they just destroyed their foundation fowl by doing so.
If they outcross, they did. They just didn't know it. It's just a matter of time when they start realizing it.
Yeah.
What's Joseph saying, this?
And the pain associated with realizing the issue was from 5 generations back, a bad decision made and done on the main line and not a subline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct on, Joseph.
Defects.
Spot on.
And this is common sense, because it is common sense for me. I'm sure it's common sense for my members, that defects are deleterious, or defects are detrimental. Defects are going to hurt your strain if you breed to them, if you match 2 birds carrying the same trait. Because I hear it so many times. Well, I just thought I'd fix, it's like colors to some of these people. I just thought I'd fix the defect later. I didn't think it was a big deal. Then you go in their yard and all their birds have the same defect, or they didn't know that was a defect. Okay. So defects they're not only flaws, but they're warnings that you're going down the wrong road. And so once and we have like 80, what is it, Frank? I think we have 88 different defects on
88, 89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once you learn what those are, it's a tool in itself that shows you, it helps in the selection. So basically you're able to select the birds that are free of defects, that are not substandard, that are not sick, and you're able to improve them through the ones that are free of those things. As soon as you start breeding to those, you perpetuate it, you've ruined your strain. I'm trying to get people from adding new blood into their family all the time. And this is the common theme when it comes to this outline. Common sense is doing things that will prevent needing to bring in outside blood.
Yeah, the biggest one I see now, we all know, I think everybody can agree that sickness, unhealthy birds is to me is the biggest genetic defect that we face. And going back to the inbreeding, I know many people that would inbreed birds of that such just by them being sick and not only having defects, but just because when we do that, anything that bird's got negative on it, we're gonna multiply it, make it stronger, magnify those genes, and sickness is one of them. And when we take those birds and we don't do our research like we're supposed to, or we know they're sick and we put them in there anyway, the only thing we're doing is saying the offspring of these birds is going to be more prone to this sickness.
You cannot create a strain or improve a strain with birds that are sick.
Nope.
Just for the fact that just the fact that they're sick shows you're lacking prepotency, you're lacking mitochondrial DNA. And if you're breeding a sick bird, you're going to produce some more sick birds. And so it's not about getting the right medicines. It's about picking the right birds to breed from.
Culling the sick.
And culling the sick and building disease resistance. So if you understand prepotency and how it works, that it takes an inbred animal that has a lot of homozygous dominant genes that isn't sick to pass its traits to its offspring, its quality to its offspring. It's a matter of picking hens that are healthy, and they never get sick. They produce healthy offspring that never get sick, that are growing, developing properly. Those are the hens that you need to select and breed to, not another hen that lacks those things just because it has a name. That's the quickest way to ruin, is clinging to the names and not paying attention to the quality of the bird. The birds show you everything you want to see about them. A prepotent cock shows you that he's going to be prepotent because he's never been sick and he produces really good offspring. That's a cock you want to keep breeding to. That's a cock you want to create a line or a family around. You got a hen that's always healthy, always active. She's like a workhorse out there. Okay. She produces offspring all the time, good number of offspring that are healthy. Like we said, they never get sick, not even coccidiosis. They're growing, developing properly. You're not seeing any runts. That's a hen you build a line around. And when you can find a cock and hen that has good prepotency and good mitochondrial DNA, can you imagine the family you're going to create from that?
Well, we
People
always say
aren't
it,
like
Kenny.
that. They're not even thinking like that.
We always say it. The offspring will tell the caliber of the parents every time. They never lie.
Yeah.
Ever.
You got Nancy? Nancy has a look on her face. She just wants to say something.
I do. Okay, so I'm ahead to number 2, breeding misconceptions.
I'm down at number 7, so you're behind me.
Dog, are you serious? You didn't talk about misconceptions, did you?
Well, it's all misconceptions to me.
Yeah.
Well, dang it.
Nancy, you can talk about it.
Okay, so I asked the crew, okay, what are some misconceptions that you've all have ever heard?
Yeah.
And Derek says here, misconception number 1, I think you gotta freshen them up.
Frank, where are we at right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we're going to talk about next is.
All right. Yeah. And then here we go. The problem is that most don't know the defects, but even identify and discard of them, so.
Yeah. And I know how easy that is, Frank, is because we've both done it. We had birds with defects that had so many other great traits that we didn't discard them or eliminate them like we should have. And I held on to one that I can think of right off the bat, right away, that I held on for years because he looked perfect for everything else. It was the best bird I've ever seen, except for that he had a duck toe. And thank God I didn't breed to him, but I sure thought about it many times, And then I finally said, okay, enough's enough, and I got rid of it. And before I met Tony, I was breeding to defects before that. And I was perpetuating the defects. And I know you've been through that too, Frank.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I went through it for many, many years. And probably, to tell you the truth about it, if somebody had pointed it out to me, I'd have been like, oh, well. They're good. They're all right, Back then, it just, I didn't understand it. But I want to go back to number 5. We touched on it some, and we're talking about all these defects. And I know Kenny has heard people talk about this, or probably even ask him about it. Traits like squirrel tail, giving the rooster a significant, like he would be prone to a certain way just by having a squirrel tail. It would give him attributes of a good rooster, or the curly feathers on the back of the head would make him a better rooster. Old wives' tales miss type things for it. And it's still out there today. Even with the technology we have, the information that we have that's out there, those old wives' tales still stick. Or counting how the scales line up on the legs of the birds. That's still big.
Yeah. It's hard. I think we're making progress. I see change. I see the way people are talking, but we're not going to get to everybody. That's the sad part. And then some people are going to get to, but they're just not going to gravitate to this because they're not ready. I said all the time, some people are ready to learn. Some people aren't. Some people will never be. So all we can do is keep doing what we're doing, and eventually, or hopefully, we'll reach enough people that it'll be like a domino effect where it'll start to really make a difference. And then if enough people tell one person that what he's thinking is wrong, then maybe he'll change. Nobody wants to be a loner or all by themselves in their thinking. If they're the only ones thinking like that, but everybody else is thinking differently, they're going to start eventually scratching their head like, okay, what am I not getting? Why are they all saying this, but I'm the only one saying this?
I think that's what scares them.
Yeah.
I think that's what scares them a lot.
Well, here's the other part too that makes them gravitate towards it is even if they partially believe it, whether it's the defects or the confirmation or a certain station or carriage or how they hold their tail or a defect or whatever. Oh shoot, I left me. I forgot where I was going with that.
Ding,
Nope,
ding,
I
ding,
totally
ding.
lost it.
I have that happen at least 3 times a day.
Yeah, no, I totally lost it. I think. Let me see if I can get it back. I'll have to delete this part.
Okay, so while you're thinking about that, Zach, here's a misconception from Zach. Pigeon world misconception. Inbreeding makes them lose performance.
That's
The only way-
selection.
Yeah, selection. The only way you're going to lose performance is just selecting, not selecting birds that are performing well, but understand, and this is where what he's talking about a lot of times is where they think by breeding a high performance bird with another high performance bird that's not related, that they're going to produce more high performance birds. And hybrid vigor doesn't exactly work like that, because it takes two inbred families to produce proper hybrid vigor, and then that hybrid offspring can't pass their hybrid vigor to the next generation. It's very temporary. That is a one-time deal. And so what they think they're getting, they're not getting. So will some come out of that are higher performing? Maybe. But we're talking about polygenic traits. They're never improved with one infusion, one selection, or one cross. It takes many generations to actually nurture that particular trait to the point when you are getting better birds. So it is a misconception. I don't know how to get past that. I just think they don't really understand the genetics and the genetic factors and how they work. If they did, they would steer away from that. Meiosis is a good, and we talk about it too, Frank, where meiosis is the answer. And you could look up meiosis anywhere online or in a book and not understand what we're talking about, because the general operation, what's the word for it? The way meiosis works doesn't really spell it out for breeders. Okay. And it doesn't show you what that means. But if you really understand meiosis and you understand it as a breeder thinks, or the way it works for a breeder, you'd understand that adding two birds that are unrelated doesn't get you what you're looking for. It gets you variation. It gets you recombination. It gets you where unpredictability. Some birds are going to have some of the traits. Some birds are going to have other traits. So you're not going to get the uniformity that you were looking for. And I think they just don't know what they're doing or what they're looking for, or I don't know.
It's a gamble.
Yeah.
It's a gamble. It can go either way. You never know. But usually across the board, it's going to be an uneven graft. It's going to be just like a snake. It's going to be all over the place.
And this is a good one too. Go back, Nancy. That's a good one too. So he's talking about working on one trait at a time, and I hear this a lot. It's called tandem mating. And I just heard a well-known teacher, I want to call him, influencer, that's what he promotes, is one trait at a time. That if you try to work on multiple traits, you're going to get yourself in trouble. I think it's the other way around. I think you need to work on multiple traits. I think you need to work on the complete package. If you're hatching as many chicks as you can manage and afford, you're going to have a better selection. And this is what screws people up, is that they don't see, because they don't see a majority of the offspring carrying those particular traits, they think they failed. Okay, yeah, you're selecting for the complete package. That means you're going to be selecting less birds, but you're going to be selecting the best birds, and you're going to be moving forward with those. And then those are the ones that are going to move your family to the next level. And eventually, those more birds are going to be carrying those traits, and more of them are going to be more complete, to the point you're not culling as hard as you were. It takes time. You got to be willing to be patient, and you got to be willing to take the time that's needed to get you there to a proper foundation. So if you're working on one trait at a time, you're destroying others. Okay.
Overlooking the biggest part of the picture.
Yeah. So you can't work on this and neglect that, and then come over here and work on that and then neglect this, because you just will never get there. And a lot of times when you work on this and neglect that, you lose that completely. You know what I mean?
It's like
a polygenic trait.
Yeah, I see one trait breeding as going to a lake, getting a bucket, and just trying to bail the water out, take it from one side and pour it in the other. constantly doing it. You're never going to get nowhere.
Yeah. So I think that's a big mistake. You gotta work on the complete package. And that means, yes, you're going to be selecting fewer birds to move the family forward. But that's in the beginning, especially in the beginning, that's what you want, because it's the few, the standouts, the exceptional birds are actually going to move your family forward. Not the ones that actually have one trait but are missing the others. You just don't get there that way, you know?
If you do, it's luck.
Yeah, well, and it's temporary, because those traits are usually polygenic.
Yeah.
And it's usually hybrid vigor that you're seeing, and not a true representation of the gene pool, the genome of those birds.
And that's the difference.
All right, check this one out. Derek says, I've heard a guy talking online on another show making a statement that eye color doesn't matter. Now, hold on until you let me give you a side note to that. Mr. Kinney, does eye color affect the bird's vision if the bird is healthy? So there you go. There's two for you.
Well, the things, I wouldn't say it's color that affect, unless it's like what's that disease?
Green eye.
Liver
gray eye.
What's it called? Leukosis, when they're like daw eye, green eye, or things like that. That could be actually a disease right there. Or if they're having a regular pupil,
Merrick's eye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Things like that. That's definitely a disease, or that would assume that the birds are unhealthy. It's more of a genetic thing, where if I have birds that have the wrong color eye, then I'm going to perpetuate that eye color. Now they don't represent their breed. If I have a bird that has one eye that's one color and another eye that's a different color, then that's going to affect, I'm going to breed those, and that could affect the offspring. And to me, that's basically the same as feather color. Feather color, does it represent its breed and variety? So we're looking at feather color, we're looking at eye color. Those are essential for the different varieties of certain breeds. Now, when we're talking about disease, liver leukosis, Merrick's, those kind of things, that's disease of the eye. When we're looking at a disease or sickness when it comes to feather quality, now we're looking at progressive white. When we have white coming into the feathers, it's just going to get worse. And Brian says that not only is that progressive white affecting the outside of the bird, the color of the bird, and it does get worse. And if you're breeding to it, you can't control it. But there's a lot about that white feathering that affects the inside of the bird. This is also true with recessive white. A lot of birds that are recessive are weaker birds, recessive white. They're weaker birds. Well, the same thing is true with progressive white. If you're perpetuating that white color, chances are, if you're paying attention, you'll see things that other people wouldn't see if the white wasn't there. So,
yeah. And what Kenny's saying with the eye, you don't want, say, for instance, one of my brown and red birds, you don't want him sporting a set of amber or yellow eyes. Okay. You want that bird's eyes to be of a dark family, either dark or darker of an eye. But as long as the eye suits it, it doesn't matter what color it is. As long as it's a proper color, as long as it's not that, like Kenny was talking about, the gray or blue eye, one eye different color from the other. The color of the eye doesn't state the way the bird sees. It's the pupil itself. But like Kenny said, that's the biggest thing. You don't want a bird with two different colored eyes, because next thing you know, before you know it, if you're breeding close on those birds in a true family, every bird on your yard is going to have a mismatched set of eyes. So it's something you got to be careful with, and you want your birds to be representatives of their strain.
Weaknesses come in many ways. It comes in sickness. It comes in the traits that they carry or don't carry. It comes in the traits that are deleterious to the bird, like the progressive white. It comes in like defects such as, and understand that some defects are monogenic, meaning you are dealing with dominant recessive. It's a matter of either selecting for the trait or calling for the trait. Either you select the trait or you either eliminate the trait or you exaggerate the trait. And then you got polygenic traits. It's a whole different story. And the problem is most of the traits we're dealing with are polygenic. So a lot of the traits that are dominant recessive are fewer, not as consequential as it would be for the polygenic. Polygenic, you got to get your minds, you got to get a handle on the idea of polygenics and the factors there that are there and how they work so that you're selecting them properly. It's all about selection. It's all about breeding, mating them properly. It's all about patience, breeding to the highest intensity for that particular trait. It takes time. It's never fixed with one infusion, one outcross. Matter of fact, you went the other way. It's about keeping them as pure as possible, selecting for the highest intensity, and slowly getting there and being patient while you're doing it. So if anybody is feeling like they need to outcross or infuse new blood to freshen them up, it's always because there's traits those birds carry they can't seem to fix, and they think that outcrossing or refreshing the blood is the answer, which is quite the opposite, or they get scared that the birds are getting too inbred, which I assure you they're not. It would take a lot of inbreeding to get there, and they panic and they do the outcross to circumvent or try to prevent something, which they don't. We have a mechanism in the founders program that fixes all that prevents the inbreeding depression that everybody's worried about. I'm so tired of hearing, I'm worried about the COI. I don't want to get them too close. Man, I'm not worried about the COI, the coefficient inbreeding at all. The closer to the better they are, the better for me. I can get them more uniform. I can fix the other things, the things that they're worried about through selection and following the founders program. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Did you forget what you said?
No, at the beginning of that statement that was 5 minutes ago, you said breeding them properly. So breeding them properly is all the things that you just mentioned. Is that what you're saying?
It's everything. It's selecting them. It's getting the right birds. It's selecting the right birds to breed.
Multitude.
Okay. It's culling the ones that you shouldn't breed. It's using a proper breeding program. Okay. It's everything.
It's like the three-legged stool. If one of those is off, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Just what Kenny mentioned. If one of those is off, then you're not going to get anywhere. If your selection, but mainly without selection, nothing's possible.
And what Frank is talking about is there's a, what do we call it? It's like a program that we talk about. We call it the three-legged stool theory. It has a lot to do with epigenetics. And you have the environment and management, which is one leg. You have health and nutrition, which is the third leg. And then you have genetic inheritance and selection, which is the third leg. And if any one of those is wrong, then you have a family that's it's just not going to move forward. It's not going to be as good as it should have been. And so whenever we're dealing with epigenetics, we're dealing with all those factors. Any one of those factors can either improve the breed or destroy the breed. And any of those factors can actually make genes either turn on or turn off. We can change the intensity of those genes through epigenetics. So anytime we bring in new birds and we don't really understand those birds and we let the environment influence them and we don't understand the genes that are actually being expressed or all of a sudden being turned off because they weren't showing up in someone else's yard, then we lose our ability to actually create a family from that. But if we understand the genetic factors, we understand that that epigenetics has a factor or has an influence on them, then we can be patient enough to select the birds that are actually showing the genes that we're looking for. And over time, we can improve them and make a family out of that. And once they're expressed and we keep selecting towards those traits and we exaggerate them, they become a permanent part of that family. And they will be if I got birds from Frank and I did it that way, I can assure you that the birds that I raised and bred after that over a number of years would be completely different than Frank's, because I'm only selecting from the phenotype. It's the phenotype that I can select from. The genotype is going to show itself as variation. So understanding the three-legged stool, understanding epigenetics, understanding genetics in general, whether it's monogenic or polygenic, and understanding the selection process and understanding your birds is so important. If you don't have a grasp on those things, you're guessing. You might as well just keep bringing in new birds and forget about even trying to create a family.
Well, I've got something for everybody that's listening to think about. Okay. We know, me and Kenny know how much pen room and work it is just to maintain one family of birds, a true family of birds. What about these guys that's got 30 plus different lines? There's no way that no one can ever make me believe that somebody can maintain and breed 30 different strains, and them be pure of trait. They can't make me believe that. Now, this is a scenario that I'm looking at. If you see a guy that's got 30, 35 different strains, or even 15, usually they've got two different families that they're breeding together and selling hybrids. Usually not, and that when those are gone, they replace them with others. I've seen this done so many times, but just the room it takes alone just to maintain one family is outrageous. So you study, 29 times more than that. How big a spot how big a place in the pens that you would need to maintain that a true family and do it the right way.
If they have that many families, there's no way they're producing enough chicks to select properly, for one thing. And to keep track of them is another thing. So we say it all the time, hatch as many chicks as you can manage to force so you have the proper selection. If you have 20, 30 breeds, there's no way to do that. Because how are you going to improve a family when you only have a clutch or two of a particular breed, if it's a breed at all? The selection just isn't there. So they end up keeping them all, breeding to all of them.
Yeah, and the number of birds from those 30s that you would have to produce it'd be crazy.
I did this. I know this one very well because before I met Tony and some of my other mentors, I think it was 15 or 16. I always say I never know. I can't remember which. I had like 15 or 16 different, what I thought were different breeds, different strains. Okay. All I know, they were different colors, so they looked different. And they had different names. And I went by it. And man, it was impossible. I really had a problem keeping track of who is who.
I've had,
and if I mixed the chicks
before.
together, the chicks together, there was no telling what I had. Okay. And then I was only producing a small number of clutch, a small number of chicks per so-called breed. And some of them, I couldn't even breed them that year because I just didn't have enough. And I've lost count of how many times my mentors came over and says, Kenny, you need to do something with this. You need to get rid of all these breeds. And I had a tough time with it because I liked them. I like having the variety.
Everybody does.
I had a chicken zoo and I was having fun. But they were right. I noticed that I wasn't making progress. They weren't getting any better. And they always had some issue with them. Once I started to learn from Tony, the confirmation and the type and the carriage and the station, the proper, what made up the bird, the color and all, I started seeing that I wasn't quite getting there. Some of them kind of had the color, but they were far off on confirmation. And then the defects were eating me alive, and then not counting all the sick birds that I was producing too. And I just wasn't getting there. So I took it to heart. I just got tired of them telling me this. And I said, okay, let me do it this way. So I said, which birds could I get rid of and be okay? So I just kept getting rid of the worst birds. And then I'd look them over again. That's okay. Which is next? And I kept weeding them down till I got to the last three, which was the roundheads I got from Mike Gentry, the sweaters I had from Bruce Barnett, and my Colonel Gibbons, which I call the Maximus line now. And I had those for a while. But I noticed I still wasn't making the progress I want. I noticed that I wasn't breeding as much of the roundheads as I thought I would because I was breeding some of the others. So my brother came over and said, hey, I'll take those roundheads. I said, take them. Okay. They were nice birds too. Okay.
They were.
Yeah. And he took them, and I still had the sweaters, and I was going to hold on to those for quite a while. And I was debating what to do, but I could tell I was kind of leaning towards the Colonel Gibbons, the stuff I got from Colonel Gibbons. And then some guy made me a deal for the sweaters that I was like, okay, if I'm going to get rid of them, this is the way to do it. I told him, okay, this is the price. Take them all. And he did. Because I didn't want a cock or hen or even a baby chick hanging out there that I was going to reproduce the whole thing all over again. And he took them. And then I put all my attention into my Colonel Gibbons, which freed up a lot of pens. I was able to hatch a lot of chicks and have the selection that I needed. And man, the improvement was exponential. I couldn't believe the difference in my birds and how much better they got. And the selection was better. It was like night and day.
In an ideal world, of a serious breeder's got one breed, no more than two.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say correction, Kenny.
Okay.
They weren't Colonel Gibbons. They were yours.
They were, well, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Then they were.
Let me say that. Let me say this though. If this is even an argument, that I didn't have them very long. I got them from Colonel Gibbons. I only had them for a few years before I started actually breeding them. Okay. So were they Colonel Gibbons? That's where I got them from. Once I started seeing changes and they started improving, it was soon after that I stopped calling them Colonel Gibbons. I call them the Maximus line.
Well, you can't call something by somebody else's name and them not breeding it. That's what people have to understand. When you're doing the selection and all the breeding 100% on your own, then they don't belong to that person anymore. Unless now the first birds that you got that you started your seed fowl, now those was truly Colonel Gibbons because you got them directly from him. But after it got up and you've established a family with them, you was the one making the decisions on all the breeding. Those are your birds, nobody else's.
That's true. And I like the way you said that. If I got birds from Frank, the birds he sent me, those are Frank Bradley's.
Yep.
The birds they produce are mine.
Yep. When you start selecting and breeding them back, right then and there, they become your birds.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. Now, another war is the purity of blood thing. Everybody says there's no such thing as purity of blood. Okay. And we say it all the time. Is there anything really pure? Yeah. Domestically, these are domestic birds. You let them breed by themselves, they're going to change. I have to control what direction they go. I have to selectively breed them to keep them where I want them and to improve them the way I think they need to be improved. Nothing's pure except for, I don't even know they're pure anymore, but they should be, is a jungle fowl. That Mother Nature has perfected and they repeat themselves. Now, if you have a family, even though you're the one that has to maintain them, if you have a family that's uniform, consistent, predictable, and repeatable, to me, that's a pure family. I think you can argue that that's a pure family, even though that if you just let them breed on their own, they would change. You have to do that. But if I'm basically breeding them and I'm seeing uniformity and consistency, and I can predict and I can repeat the process each time, then I got a pure family.
That's how I see it. I see it as pure of trait, not pure bloodline, but pure of trait, how they bred.
Well, there's two ways to look at that. You have the purity of the family, which if you do the things I said, I think they're pure.
Yeah.
But then you have the purity of the trait, which is true purity of blood when you think about it, Frank. Mm-hmm. Especially when you've got two homozygous dominant genes and they're not producing any recessives whatsoever. You've even tested them. You've tested the progeny, you've tested them against the recessives. They're not showing any recessives. And you can say that they're pure for that particular trait. Or I have birds that are producing recessives. We know those are pure. Then yeah, they're pure for that trait. The idea is to get a bird that's pure in all their traits, which is going to help in the uniformity, the consistency, and the repeatability and predictability type of thing. So, yeah.
The only thing I would say on that, as far as the purity of trait, is each is going to be different. The purity intensity for the trait is going to differ,
especially when it comes to polygenic traits.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's the reason we have to keep building year after year after year to intensify those traits. That would be the only difference, would be the intensity of the trait itself in that family. It could be weaker, stronger, mediocre, it's what you make it.
Okay. So then you have somebody who says they're pure. I haven't added blood in them forever. Maybe they didn't. And they're all different.
Yeah.
Well, then they may be pure of blood, but they're not pure of trait. And that means they didn't selectively breed them. They weren't selecting for the proper traits. They were just breeding whatever to whatever. Yeah. And to me, that's where they're either not truthful about what they're saying, or they're all about the performance. They don't care what the bird looks like. In that case, they're losing the breed. In a short amount of time, they are not going to represent their breed.
I can do without them all not being colored the same, as long as they all are carbon copies of each other as far as confirmation and the traits they were bred for.
Yeah.
I can do on the color a little bit.
Will you see variation from time to time? Yes.
Yes.
All we can do is select towards the phenotype. The genotype is going to show the variation. That's where we keep perfecting them by weeding out those variations. If they're good, then we can, we want to perpetuate that, then we can create a subline and exaggerate that trait and work on it. If it's bad, then we just need to keep culling the birds that are not what our ideal is. What's Sunny saying, Nance?
Well, this goes along the lines of her question. When there are many defects to work on at the start of creating a strain, should I focus on the bigger ones first, then start working on the minor flaws? Hold on. And then Derek says this: breed to the total package always. Some defects can be bred away from and show less intensity, Sunny.
Okay. Sure. So if it's a true defect, then she's got to eliminate them as she sees them. Okay. Now, understand the difference between, like, was it Derek? The difference between monogenic traits and polygenic. If it's a monogenic trait, then we need to eliminate it as soon as we see it. If it's a polygenic trait, and we'll know through variation, then we need to select to the highest intensity and little by little get rid of them. We either got to select to the high. What's that?
The highest or lowest.
Well, depending on what direction you want to go.
Yes.
Or you select the birds that are the closest to the standard, which is what I prefer. You know, if we're talking about a lot of birds with squirrel tail, then I'm not going to select for a down tail. I'm going to select for the birds that are the closest to the proper tail. Okay. That kind of thing. So
what happens? What happens, Kenny? Let them know though. What happens if you've got squirrel tail birds? You say, okay, I'm going to drop it down some. I'm just going to put a low angled tail bird in the mix with it to kind of bring them down a little bit. What happens then?
Well, understand that okay, when you're looking at high tail versus low tail, those are birds that have those particular breeds in them. That's a trait. Okay, that's not exactly a defect, that's a trait. So when you're breeding birds that carry those, you're going to get offspring that some are high and some are low. Okay, so if you look like an asil or oriental type birds like a shamu and things like that, they tend to have a low tail. That's a breed characteristic, where other birds have a higher tail that seems to go either up over the back or close to it. That's a trait. So whenever you're breeding two birds that are of the extreme, you're going to get offspring with both extremes. Okay, because one's not dominant over the other. They're just different. Okay. So a lot of people, and I see this all the time, everybody thinks, and I see some influencers teaching it that should know better, thinking that if they breed the extremes, they're going to get something in the middle. And that rarely happens.
That goes on with performance too.
Yeah.
The same way. They think they marry in to make a happy medium, and it doesn't. You're going to have some with one trait, the other with the other traits, and hardly any in the middle.
If you start believing in blending, then crazy. You've already went down the wrong road.
Yeah.
Because genes don't work like that. The closest you're going to get to that are incomplete dominants, where a sense of blending can happen. We see this with blues. Okay. But when you're thinking that two birds bred together is going to give you a mixture or the benefits of both,
happy
that kind of thing. We're talking about, a lot of times we're talking about polygenic traits, form and function traits. And the only way to improve them is to breed for that trait at its extreme. Okay. So we won't get there. And their answer is always outcrossing or refreshing to fix those kind of things. Man, it's so simple. It's a simple concept. It's a simple factor that if they understood polygenics, they wouldn't be breeding two different birds to get offspring that show the performance of both, or the birds that have the benefit of both performances or something like that.
You breed two birds with the same trait, trying to intensify on that trait, not opposites.
Yeah. So when I see that, I understand. I see that they don't know what they're talking about. And it's scary because there's some influencers out there, or some people that are authorities that are supposed to be really good breeders, and everybody looks up to them, and they don't know their own breed. We say this a lot. They don't know their breed. They don't know what makes up the breed. They don't know the genetics of that breed. They don't understand how the genetic factors are. They don't know how to breed them properly. And they're just wrong most of the time about everything. And it's hard to keep my mouth shut, but I just have to, because I'm just not going to win that.
Straight stick
versus crooked stick. That's our motto
every
here.
time.
Yeah. Every time. This is the closest we're coming to.
That's a win-win.
The straight stick versus crooked stick thing.
Okay, I was a little distracted when we started the show. Are we doing a roundtable tonight?
Yeah, we're just going to finish up the second hour in there. So,
all right. So let's answer this one last question. Sue, can you have recessive pop up years into the program?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they can remain hidden for a long time until they're matched up with another bird carrying the same recessive trait. So if you have two birds expressing the recessive, then, well, let me start here. If you have one bird expressing it and another bird not, then it can remain hidden and it will eventually come out. If you have two birds expressing the recessive trait, all the offspring are going to have it. If you have two birds that neither of them are expressing it, but they carry it, then they can go a long time. Well, they could go a few generations without expressing it. So it's when you see it being expressed is when you need to cull it if you don't want it, and look to the parents and either get rid of the parents or match the parents with different mates.
Well, that allows us to improve them, but also as far as the it's just like the recessive defects. You can get them to where you think you've got rid of them, but it's like Kenny said, sooner or later, you're going to have one pop up here and there. It's just you got to do your homework and do the right thing and keep it out of there, not introduce it back into that gene pool. So that's what gets people in trouble, is like, oh, it's just got that. I got rid of it once. I'll just put it in again. And then you open up Pandora's box when you do that.
Well, the big thing is throwbacks. That's everybody's favorite word. Oh, it's just a throwback to another breed. No, it's a recessive trait that was hiding in there. Here's a list of the throwbacks that we cover inside the Breeders' Academy that we talk about. We talk about them. We tell you what they're all about. We have pictures for most of them, and then we show you how to eliminate them. And it's amazing once you see them, you never unsee them.
And the thing about it is, once you learn them, you never forget about them. And like Kenny said, they will jump out of you. It's like almost stepping on a snake. I mean, it's just like you're not even looking for them, but they pop out. And just about every one of that. Now I've got a bunch of them that I've never seen with my actual eyes. Some of them that I've seen on my own yard, but most of them I have required and seen before, either on my place or other yards. So they're prevalent. They're there.
And it's not something to freak out about, because I would think that most of the breeds out there carry a lot of these defects.
They do.
Okay. And so when you see them, it's just a simple, I see it, there it is, cull it. Okay. Maybe in the beginning, you're going to cull most of your birds, it feels like.
Unless it's rye tail.
Yeah.
And kill it and put it 6 feet under and then build a fire on top of it.
I got to find that one phrase that Brian says: kill it, burn it, get rid of it,
Oh, yeah.
And then I should play that every time we talk about
That's a destroyer right there.
Yeah, when it comes to progressive white and rye tail, they're equally as dangerous, and you see them, you should be getting rid of them. And I look hard, because when I pick up my birds, I'm really spreading out the wings. I'm looking for even the slightest blemish of white showing up, because I know that's going to come back to haunt me. So if I see that bird's out of there as fast as I see it.
I had a buddy, and I wrote an article on this because I think it happens too many times than not. We get funnel vision and we check different parts of the birds. We'll check the keel, we'll check the thighs, the hocks, stuff like that, to make sure that they're built right. But not a lot of people will take that wing and open it up. So we was at his house one day, and he's like, "Let me show you something." And his birds was like, I guess, over 5 pounds. They average 5.5 pounds. Some a little bit bigger. We picked those birds up, and their wings were about a quarter the size that they should have been on that bird. They look like it looked like a little small wild bird's wings on a pigeon.
like an ostrich.
Yeah. I mean, it was even more pronounced than that. I mean, it just didn't look real. And we got to checking them. Every one of them had that little small wing. He'd put them in the brood pens, and he had them up like 8 foot. They couldn't even get on the roost.
Ooh.
They couldn't even. Their wings couldn't get enough air under them to get them up. The big bodies up on the roost. So I said, "Gosh, that's something I'm going to check from now on." So, but we got to check everything on the bird. And Kenny said it a little while back. If one thing is out kilter on your birds, and you're breeding close within a family, man, you're going to really add some hurt to that family.
Yeah.
And we can do it without knowing it.
Yeah. I use the same method of selection that I use when I'm judging a show. And I use the same method for judging the show that I use for breeding. So when I pick up a bird, I go the same things. I pick them up. I'm feeling them. Okay. The first thing my hands are going under the body. I'm feeling for the breast. I'm looking for either I want a nice football. I want a firm breast that feels like a football, nice and round and tight. If it's pointed or crooked, gone. I don't even look any further. Okay, if he's got a good body and everything, I start looking at the head. I'm looking at the eyes. I'm looking at the eyebrow. I'm looking at the beak. I'm looking around the eye. I'm looking at all the things, the fine details of the head. And if it's good, then I move on to the next thing. And I point the head to my body. I take the bird. I spread the wings apart, and I look at the back. I want to see a broad, flat back that tapers really nicely to the tail. Okay. And then I spread the wings out, and I look at the wings. I look at the feathers, and I make sure they're all looking good and that they're the right color. Okay. Then I look at the tail, and I'm flipping that bird front and back, side to side. I want to see how he controls that tail. I want to see how that tail looks. See, I go through all these things, whether I'm picking up my birds or someone else's birds. And then I set them in the drop pen or wherever I need to put them in, and I watch them walk around. And a lot of times before I even pick them up, I'm watching them walk around. Anytime I see a defect, that examination's over, that bird goes into the coal hole. What happened to the thing here, Nancy?
I'm working on that. Keep talking.
Okay. Here. Okay.
That conversations is over with.
Yeah, I forgot what I was saying now. Yeah. What happened?
Yeah.
Don't pay attention to what's going on in the screen.
It's distracting, okay?
But if it's a defect, now, if you're just starting out and birds, your selection is off and one's got a little bit of border on a squirrel tail or something like that, polygenic trait, yeah, you can work with that. You can still breed that rooster and fix it on down the road. But something like duck toe or crooked keel or, one of the back rye tail, it's gone. I mean, your best just to go on and get it out of there to where you don't later on change your mind about it. Make your decision, cull it, do away with it. Don't go back. Don't go backwards in breeding.
Understand this. What you tolerate, you perpetuate.
Yep.
Okay? And what you perpetuate, you duplicate. And you get to the point where you've ruined your strain. Because if you have, and I've seen this, you walk on someone's yard and they have no duck toe, some other defects, sunken eye, and you can't find one bird that doesn't have that defect, what do you got to do?
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble. You either start over, you got to add new blood and start. And to me, that is starting over.
And usually the people that is in that situation, they have no idea about it. It's not been pointed out to them 9 times out of 10, or they just didn't know about the defects. They thought their birds were fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate being the bearer of bad news when it comes to that stuff. It's almost like I go on people's farm and I'm scared they're going to ask me, what do you think?
The reaper.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want to tell
Well,
them.
I will say this. Kenny is hard on the birds. I'll say that. He's even hard on his own birds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to be. And I learned that early on that if I was going to do this, if I was going to teach and write for magazines, then I have to be better than everybody else. That if there's a bird on my farm that's not right and it gets out, my reputation's gone.
You have to practice what you preach.
You got to practice what you preach. And so If that means I lost a whole family because of a particular defect, then I lost that whole family. You know, that's just not going to happen. I'm not going to perpetuate it. I'm going to do what I tell people to do. That bird is not leaving my farm.
What you put, I mean, you can't say it any better than that, Kenny. What you put in your brood pens to raise your offspring is what you get. If you put defected birds in your pen, you're going to get defected offspring. It's just the way it is. Every flaw of those birds is going, and actually, the actual offspring is going to be worse than those parents because of it.
If you see a defect and you're not getting a sinking feeling in your stomach with the idea of keeping it and not culling it, something's wrong. Okay. You should have that fear in you, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, no, I can't hold on to this, and yeah, there should be some sadness, because I'm sure up to that point you were looking at that bird thinking, this is a bird that's going to improve my family. And you pick it up and like, no.
Been there many times. Been there many times.
I had a bird out there that I thought was going to reestablish my light reds. I picked him up, spread out his hackle, and there was a couple little white feathers coming through. Done. It ain't happening.
Yeah, his wings might as well been white with just those little sprinkles.
One white feather as good as, it didn't matter. He could be fully, just sprinkled with white, like a splash, or one white feather. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing to me.
It's the same thing. It's going to get there. It's going to get there eventually.
Yeah. I take what Brian says to heart.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you that are not sure what Kenny and Frank are talking about, when we get into the back end, he will go into detail and explain it to you. And on that final note, let's all get into the back end.
Okay.
Let's do.
Yeah. Any last words?
That is all, folks.
Okay. I want to thank you guys for joining us. We'll meet our members in the back end. See you guys next week.
See you guys.
Bye.